those who have the guns have so much power that those who they are supposed to protect don't actually feel protected. They feel threatened.
Women are the first one to be the victims. Rape against women is used as a weapon of war, and that affects women throughout their life. And women are the first caregivers for children and for any given society.
There were a lot of deficiencies with regard to their training, deficiencies with regard to their conduct, their behavior, and their relationship with the population. And security force became a source of cause of conflict within the country.
It's very bad to build an army that will be seen by the former stakeholders as the continuation of an armed element who violated population. It is very dangerous to build an army that will not have a sense of what is their duty within the country.
In 2011, the United Nations Department of Peacekeeping Operations released the Defense Sector Policy, known as DSR, which guides the United Nations staff engaged in support to member states undertaking reform of the defense sector. The policy recognizes that a nation's defense sector, the military, police, intelligence, and other national security agencies need to be effective, efficient, accountable, affordable, and respectable to best serve society. This is a critical and very difficult goal to achieve for nations recovering from armed conflicts. In those places, failure of DSR can exacerbate societal divisions, breakdown of rule of law, and possibly lead to a resumption of conflict. This can delay the peace-building efforts of a country in the post-conflict phase, and most of all, disappoints a people's aspirations for recovery and peace.
As we progress, as countries emerge from conflict, without a meaningful sector security reform, again, the chances of relapsing into conflict remain high.
We are carrying out defense sector reform. Our country is coming from internal conflict, so it is very important to ensure that the military that we are going to set up is a military that has a sense of what is its role in the country, what is its duty.
The year to come will be hard.
Successful defense sector reform is transformative. It leads to peace, development, and prosperity.
It's a transformation because it seeks to achieve a change in power relations between those who are being protected and those who are protecting them.
While the policy is new, the United Nations support of national defense sector reform efforts dates back many years. Although peacekeeping missions in the 1990s included DSR components, in 2003, the Security Council mandates included specific DSR tasks in at least 5 peacekeeping missions. This support remained ad hoc and lacked in common principles, norms, and approaches.
Through the new DSR policy, the United Nations is developing a unified framework for its DSR ideals and methods. This framework draws not only on lessons learned and best practices from the field, but also from ongoing reconstruction efforts in post-conflict environments. So the DSR challenge for peacekeepers is to work with the host nation to build viable institutions which endure challenges to peace and stability.
This work is influenced by many other considerations. These encompass integration with security sector reform, national ownership, managing reform of the defense sector, establishing rule of law, protection of civilians, and regional security partnerships.
DSR is not simply a technical military issue. It is a complex operation with multiple players that must coordinate their efforts. These players are actually people who have a role in national security. Imagine this. A healthy functioning nation has an effective security sector which enhances the equilibrium between the security sector institutions and other parts of the government such as police, access to justice, social services like health and education, and gainful employment. These institutions exist and are supported by the people of the nation in order to keep peace and provide justice.
The state government controls the security sector according to the constitutional mandate, which also determines their powers and stipulates oversight. When the state fails in its responsibilities to the people or gets attacked from outside, the equilibrium is upset. Some institutions collapse, others grow in dangerous ways. The defense sector, with its heavy armaments and firepower, can become a serious threat to the state and the people who they are meant to serve. The aim of security sector reform is to restore equilibrium. To do this, defense sector reform must realign the organizational principles and command theory, which aims to serve the state government and the people. Of course, doing this is not so easy. Besides cleaning its own house, the defense sector needs to coordinate and to cooperate with many stakeholders in an environment where political tensions run high, resources are very limited, people are suffering, and other state institutions are in disarray.
The United Nations supports security sector reform. It supports member states based on their own request or based on the Security Council mandate.
So ownership is very important. Cooperation between the host country and the United Nations peacekeeping force is vital.
For DSR to work, the host country must take charge of its destiny.
It is very important that there is an agreement within all the stakeholders of what is the purpose of having an army, what is the way an army should and must behave, what is the part of the budget that we need to dedicate to the army in order to avoid that this institution is turning itself into something that tomorrow will have other purpose than defending the country, defending the institutions. So this approach is key.
It is inherently a political process to convert military forces into an integrated force that protects and enables the state to develop the institutions that will secure a peaceful future for the people.
The government needs to know how much money it has spent on security, how much money it should spend on security, and of course, the consequences of that spending for other sectors in society. So, there are very tough choices to make. If you spend money on the military or police reform, what is left then to spend on health and education?
We had lots of people who had done peacekeeping missions, so we developed mentoring programs to enable to prepare them for those operations. Law of armed conflicts, human rights, protection of civilians, because we've got that knowledge, we've trained with that knowledge, and we've actually got the experience and expertise.
Working with UN experts, host nations receive valuable expertise in strategic, operational and tactical DSR work. The UN policy focuses on strategic opportunities with emphasis on designing defence forces and developing defence policies and legislation. DSR policy work focuses on government oversight, military justice, administration, consensus building and coordinating donors. Management and budget control, for instance to weed out ghost soldiers on its payrolls. It's also involved in education. This is an area where human rights training is especially important. Operational work concentrates on equipping the defence sector with resources, human, financial and material. Tactical work centres on training key personnel. DSR policy does not provide offensive field training or develop offensive strategies.
there has to be accountability, and it is then that the people will trust in their leadership and in their institutions. And here the UN has a very important role to play.
In the absence of rule of law, UNDSR policy cannot go forward. So establishing rule of law in a conflict zone becomes a high priority. It often starts with military justice.
Amongst the military, we have practitioners in the field, some of whom may have even presided over court-martials in their various militaries, and they should be able to bring experience to bear. So it's a collective effort where we think we should work together to be able to develop a workable system.
DSR requires vigilance and uncompromised adherence to laws and social responsibilities for protection of civilians.
Ultimately, it is in defense of people. It is in defense of individuals. It is in defense of communities. And even though the state is an essential element in defense sector reform, it is ultimately not the only actor. And actually, it is actually the most vulnerable in society who are most in need of our support.
The security forces of a particular nation must work towards improving the quality of life and the security systems for the population. So it is the people who are at the center of the gravity of the complete thing.
For DSR to succeed, crimes against women and sexual violence as a weapon of war must receive special attention. Victims must be treated, counseled, and restored to society. Soldiers and perpetrators must be punished. Getting the necessary financial, human, and material resources for DSR presents a huge obstacle. Missions are expected to do more with less, so they must work smarter. Forging alliances with bilaterals and regional partnerships is critical to achieving more with less.
The contribution of the regional organization is very important. First of all, because they are the ones that can attract external support, do some kind of clearing the house of this external support, and then bring the support to a nation. They are a reservoir for experts that can help the country into designing their policy for defense sector reform. And last but not least, this organization and the military component of this organization is an additional guarantee for the government that there is a regional approach of security, that there is no will at all from your neighboring country to have any hostile acts against you because you are sharing one organization. So really, in terms of solidarity, this is key.
Over the past 5 years, security sector reform has become an integral part of United Nations assistance to countries and regions affected by conflict. An effective, accountable and affordable defense sector is often essential to re-establish security within the broad framework of the rule of law. To that end, defense sector reform is a key component of broader UN security sector reform efforts because they help create the conditions for sustainable peace and development.
My hope is that DSR will receive the support that it deserves, because most of the time the main issue is not to have equipment, is not to have barracks. The main issue is the manpower, is to have soldiers, NCOs, officers, senior leadership that behave as we are expecting people in uniform to behave, meaning to be in the service of their nation, to be in the service of peace.